What's up everybody, it's me E-Man from E-Man's Movie Reviews, and today we're going to review Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. This is the review you've been looking for. Alright, let's jump right into a quick intro. The surviving Resistance must now go up against their most dangerous threat to date in the final chapter of the Skywalker saga. Enough of that, let's jump right into the good.
The good.
Now, a definite bright spot for Rise of Skywalker is that it doesn't hold back with the intergalactic action scenes. I thought it was really cool how they were able to find a new way to show us a chase scene in space. While The Last Jedi gave us a really innovative maneuver with spaceships, now we get even some more exciting, unique tactics used in The Rise of Skywalker. In addition to that, the cinematography was handled pretty well. We get a nice blend of camera angles and transitions that keep you engaged during many of the suspenseful action sequences. I think you can really notice that once we get to the lightsaber and spaceship battles. The camera work was handled in a sufficient way that allows you to follow and take in all of the action that's going on without getting lost. Another highlight for Rise of Skywalker is going to come in some aspects of the story. I thought that Rise of Skywalker handled the emotional beats very well. Thanks to some well-timed cameos, this movie tapped into the feels by providing some moments for memorable characters to complete their story arcs. Billy D. Williams as Lando appears in Rise of Skywalker and is just as fun as he was in his original appearance in The Empire Strikes Back. Lando's character doesn't detract from the story, but instead adds to it. There were also some really touching scenes with Carrie Fisher as Leia. I thought these scenes gave Leia some much deserved focus and background information that really helped to elevate her character. Another positive story element in Rise of Skywalker is that we get to see some new Force abilities at play. Now, we did get a tease of new abilities in The Last Jedi, but we definitely get it turned up a notch in Rise of Skywalker. There's a Force ability that we haven't seen before, and it's definitely an interesting power to see. What I appreciated was how the new Force power can be used for both good or evil. That way we still maintain that same continuity within the Star Wars themes. Moving on, the performances in Rise of Skywalker were actually pretty good as well. I think that Daisy Ridley, who played Rey, put on her best performance compared to the previous two movies in the trilogy. Ridley was able to effectively communicate her internal struggles and emotional toil as we discover the truth about her past. I thought that Ridley's performance was so strong that it was able to overcome a rather weak script for her character. In a similar way, Adam Driver, who played Kylo Ren, delivered with his performance as well. I thought Driver was able to refine his acting to be a bit more focused when it came to communicating his character's frustrations and emotional state. Compared to Force Awakens, Driver showed us much more of his acting range in his delivery. Alright, enough of that. On to the bad.
The bad.
Alright, look, I'm gonna cut right to the chase. The writing for Rise of Skywalker was terrible. There were so many things that were just thrown at us left and right, hoping for something to just stick, rather than having a natural flow to the plot. Much of the story felt underdeveloped or not well thought out. The writing made a number of things suffer, so let's start with the characters first. Kylo Ren, I believe, took the biggest hit with his character. From The Force Awakens, we got a nice subtle look at his character, but there always seemed to be a very predictable sense of the direction he would take. If we jump to Last Jedi, I thought that his character had a very interesting road with the new direction that he was going to take. However, when we fast forward to Rise of Skywalker, his character is in the same predictable state. Regardless of the direction or decisions his character makes, I don't think that the writing allowed for him to really go through some real changes, and instead he just kind of went through some minor changes. Well, let me try and put it to you this way. It's kind of like the movie is going to tell you that Kylo is going through this or that emotional state, but I don't think it was written well enough to make you believe the journey that he takes is genuine. And that brings me to the other character that I thought that was mishandled, and that was Palpatine. I won't go into spoiler details, obviously, but his inclusion to the film felt like a mere plot device. In fairness, I did like how they made his character a legit serious threat, greater than ever before even. However, I didn't care for how they tried to force him into this story and still managed to leave basic questions left unanswered. The next victim of the writing was the backtracking from The Last Jedi. Rise of Skywalker's direction and plot felt like its sole purpose was to undo what the previous movie established rather than to conclude the entire saga. We literally have characters undoing what they did or believed from the last movie and backtracking in terms of their character development. It was so blatant at times that a character would do the polar opposite of what they did in Last Jedi and then openly admit, I was wrong. Now, I will address a little bit more of this because I know there are a lot of people that have issues with Last Jedi and stuff, and I'll talk about that at the end of this review, so stay tuned. But back to the bad issues going on. Another problem with the writing is how they introduce things and don't really develop them later. I believe you can see that happening with some of the new characters that seem to be there for one reason but end up going nowhere. It's strange because there seems to be a sense that this or that character may have, like, I don't know, a romantic interest with another character, but we never get a clear picture of how many of these relationship dynamics work. It's almost like the writers would just start off with a story point or a character and just never follow through with it. And unfortunately, this movie was ridiculously predictable. And I'm talking about predictable even for a Star Wars movie. I think part of the problem was the placement of some of the reveals or twists. For example, the film does address Rey's past. However, when it gets revealed, it kind of fell flat. Had some of the mystery of her past been built up and slowly revealed closer to the end of the movie, I think we would have had a much more satisfying payoff. The answer to her past itself is interesting, however, the execution in which they let the audience know isn't really the best. Given that this movie telegraphs so much stuff, it's hard to really be surprised when something big does actually happen. To have so many long-awaited mysteries be rushed or misplaced is just kind of disappointing. And finally, let me just say, the final ending felt so cheap and cheesy. The final battle is legit and fun to watch, but the end of that battle had a bit of an issue. It undermined a lot of things that the Star Wars lore and previous movies tried to establish. I thought that The Rise of Skywalker had some really key opportunities to really cash in on the constant themes that have echoed throughout all of the previous movies. Instead, it felt like they just wanted to go with a cliche ending that wasn't all that compelling. Then to top it off, the very final scene of the movie that I'm assuming explains the title of the film was cringeworthy at best. I don't know who in their right mind thought that the final ending was going to be cute or fitting or whatever, but it just did not land for me. Anyway, that's all I got for that. Let's move on to the reason.
The reason.
Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker is an emotionally charged, visually stunning, and action-packed close to the epic story that still manages to disappoint. It's undoubtedly entertaining and definitely makes a strong effort to please the Star Wars fan base. Unfortunately, that is also its downfall because it placed pandering over good storytelling, and you could tell that very easily. Rise of Skywalker did not seem interested in concluding the Skywalker saga. Instead, this movie just wanted to be a conclusion to The Force Awakens. It's kind of interesting because the same way Force Awakens was kind of like A New Hope, well, Rise of Skywalker was kind of like Return of the Jedi. Unfortunately, we didn't get the same type of satisfying closure to the Skywalker saga because plot points were forced and didn't come about organically. I suppose the biggest disappointment is that this movie really wanted to try to wrap up all the previous 8 movies, and it still managed to leave some questions unanswered. So when it comes to the rating for Star Wars: Rise of Skywalker, I've got to give it a 6 out of 10. Now, with all of this said, is Rise of Skywalker still worth watching? Absolutely. Odds are you've probably 8 movies invested already, and it would be difficult not to know how it all ends. Don't get me wrong, I totally understand if people would rather wait, but the main reason to go check it out sooner than later is just really to avoid the inevitable spoilers. Now, I would recommend a theater viewing for this because the visuals simply demand to be seen and appreciated on the big screen. Alright, now that concludes my review portion of Star Wars Rise of Skywalker. Now I just want to kind of address the big elephant in the room, and that is basically all the controversy behind this entire trilogy, especially dealing with Last Jedi, Rian Johnson, J.J. Abrams, and all of that. Now, regardless of how you might feel about Last Jedi, whether you hated it, whether you loved it, put all of that aside. I just want to put a different perspective out there for you all to consider. Based off of the news, reports, and all this stuff with this current trilogy, I personally believe that what we get in Rise of Skywalker is really just a studio knee-jerk reaction to all of the negativity or comments from the fan base after Last Jedi. So what does that mean? Well, let me give you a quick example. It's kind of like what happened with DC and Warner Brothers when they also did a knee-jerk reaction after Batman vs. Superman and what they did with Justice League. The same way that they caved in to pressure, thinking that they should be less dark and add some of that Marvel fun, and we all know how that just did not work out. That, I think, is what happens here in Rise of Jedi. Because prior to all of this, and please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, it seems as though that when Force Awakens came out and they already knew what they were going to get from Rian Johnson, all the studio heads seemed to really like Rian Johnson's Last Jedi and all that good stuff, and they were moving forward, and they thought they could just be on cruise control until, you know, again, it hit that speed bump with some fans and divided the fan base. And then now you bring J.J. Abrams back into the fold, and rather than continuing the story, you go and undo a lot of stuff, and you sacrifice a really good story in the process. Now, when I say in my previous comments and reaction video that Rise of Skywalker felt like it disrespected Last Jedi, I say that because it felt like if this is supposed to be a team effort from the studio, you don't go back on your other teammate like that. Look, even if, let's just say, Last Jedi was like terrible, which personally I don't agree with. I actually enjoyed Last Jedi, and I totally respect people that didn't care for it. That's fine. But even if Last Jedi was so bad, I think the better approach is not to negate the last movie, which is kind of disrespectful to the last director, but instead you can continue what they left off with and just do a little course correction through the actual storylines. I don't think Rise of Skywalker was creative enough in the storytelling, and that's kind of why I think it was just more of like a pander job, and the movie just kind of falls flat. So for me, I'm not gonna sit here and blame Rian Johnson. I'm not going to blame J.J. Abrams or whatever. I'm actually taking blame on everybody. I'm actually just gonna blame the entire team, because clearly Disney should have just thought this out better. You knew you were going to do a trilogy. You knew you wanted JJ to start. You knew you wanted Rian Johnson. You knew what Rian Johnson was going to do. And I understand that they had another third director that dropped out and then JJ had to come back. But at the end of the day, it needs to be a much more collaborative effort so it doesn't look like there's infighting and pandering and all this stuff. So for me, I'm like, yo, all of Disney dropped the ball on this whole trilogy. Hopefully this actually becomes a learning experience for Disney, because I want to believe that, you know, to really unite the fan base again, all you really have to do is give us new material. Star Wars is a huge galaxy. There's a lot of stuff there. It doesn't have to revolve around like 3 or 4 planets and 1 or 2 little families. So give us new stuff. The Mandalorian is kicking butt and taking names. Shout out to Baby Yoda. Baby Yoda is so freaking cute. And I just really believe that if you keep giving us new stuff, we have less stuff to fight about, because nobody can say, no, this is supposed to go this way. No, it's supposed to go that way. Nah, man, just give us new stuff. It's coolsy. Come on. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for indulging me on my little mini Star Wars rant. Whenever you do get a chance to go see Rise of Skywalker, please come on back to this video and let me know what you thought about it. Maybe some of you will come away from the movie feeling a little bit different than I did. That's totally okay. I always encourage you guys to go watch the movies and make up your own mind. I'm thinking maybe this Saturday, if some of you are up for it, we could do maybe a live spoiler chat, talk about the movie, because there is a lot to talk about. If you're down for that, let me know in the comments as well, and we can make it happen. Anyway, thank you all for taking the time to watch my video. I certainly always appreciate it. If you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I've got more videos and reviews to do for you all, and until next time, I'll see you all later.